Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today we are talking about seated forward fold, Paschimottanasana, its benefits, and how different body types will want to do this pose because it does vary depending on your body. My name is Christina Raskin. I'm the founder of Soul Thrive Yoga. And here at Soul Thrive Yoga, we are passionate about using the tools and the wisdom, the science, and the spirit of yoga to transform ourselves here on the mat, but also off the mat in our daily lives. Paschimottanasana, or west side stretching pose, stretches the entire back part of our body, what some people would call the posterior chain. And the reason it's called west facing pose is because traditionally you would wake up and do your practice facing the east, the rising sun. So the back body is the west, it's facing the west. We stretch all through the muscles of the back, and then of course our gluteus maximus, down our hamstrings, the whole back posterior chain of the body gets a stretch here. If you tend to have tight hamstrings, I do recommend sitting up on something, a block or a pillow. And what this does is it helps to tip your pelvis a little bit. So if your hamstrings are tight, you'll usually sit back on your tailbone. And when you sit up on something, it kind of pulls your sitting bones back a little bit so you can create a little more length in the lower back. And the reason we want to do that with tight bodies is because if you're tucking the tailbone forward when you're trying to reach forward and you're rounding the spine here, you're actually losing the stretch in the hamstrings, the benefit of this pose. So if you have a tight body, if you find that when you sit up, you can't sit up tall with your legs straight, your tailbone is tucking forward, then either sit up on a prop or bend the knees and work towards lengthening the spine first. So that's how somebody with a tighter body would want to do this pose, tight hamstrings. However, if your hamstrings are more open, you actually want a different approach. If you can sit up tall with your legs straight, this is 90 degrees hip flexion with the thigh bone forward here. If you could do this, you're on the high range of flexibility for your hamstrings. So then if you're stretching forward, what you don't want to do is over flatten the back. So for somebody who's rounding the spine, we want them to lengthen, definitely find length. Try to keep that length as you come forward slightly. But if you can keep that length and you can come forward a little bit, like I can, so this would be about 90 degrees here, then I can come forward about 100, 110 or so. Once you reach there, you have to round the spine. That's healthy movement to round the spine into your forward fold. If somebody's a little bit more flexible and more open, tries to overly flatten too much, that can actually be detrimental to the back of the pelvis, the SI joint there. It can destabilize this joint, and we want this joint to be very stable and solid. So two different approaches depending on your body type. Both approaches, we're trying to get that stretch in the hamstring. But if you're sitting up at 90 degrees and you can go forward with a lengthened spine, then you will have to round forward. And then you'll start to stretch into the muscles of the spine, the back spine. So like your QL on either side of your lower back, those muscles as you reach forward. You don't have to take the hands, of course, to the feet. That will depend on how long your legs are, how long your torso is, how long your arms are. More so, we want that stretch in the back of the thighs. Feel it in the bulk of the muscle. Another thing to note here is we don't want to feel the stretch in the back of the knee, more in the bulk of the muscle. If you're feeling it in the back of the knee, usually for a tighter body, then again, don't go forward as much, maybe bend the knees a little bit and try to adjust slightly with the pelvis, either sitting up on something or turning the tailbone back a little bit so that you feel it in the body of the muscle there. So give Paschimottanasana a chance. Try all the variations. This is a very introspective pose. So by folding forward, we tend to be able to turn our attention inwards and notice the breath a little bit more. So try to bring that energy to this pose next time you do it. And let me know how it goes.